You're listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. I'm your host, Pat Guyette. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my bow.
This week, I sit down with Chris and Tyler. They're a couple of buddies of mine that I met through the local hunting communities, and we talk about what it's like to get into hunting as an adult. Since they both got into hunting as an adult, I got into hunting kind of the traditional way, growing up with it in the family. So they've got some great advice for new hunters, overcoming fears of getting into the woods and, how to go about scouting, asking for private landowner permission and things like that. We talk about, helping each other out. Chris was there last year when I got my first bow buck, helped me drag it out. We used his pickup truck to transport it. And there's a lot of good stuff in this one. It's a little bit of a change of pace since none of us have killed a huge buck, so there's no huge buck stories, but a lot of good information, so I hope you enjoy it. All right, welcome back to another episode of Hunt Suburbia. Sitting here with a couple of fairly new buddies. Chris, who I met last year, he was nice enough to offer up his pickup truck to help me move some wood. That never happened, but we kept in touch over text and became hunting buddies. Actually, the first buck I killed with a bow ever was the first day I met Chris, so he's kind of a good luck charm. And also sitting here with Tyler, who pretty recently we've been texting back and forth, just sharing hunting stories and scouting stories and things like that. Another great guy I met through Bow Site, and just goes to show you that hunting's a great way to get out there and network and meet some great people. So thanks, guys, for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yep, thank you.
We're gonna do something a little bit different today. None of us have really killed a huge buck. We love hunting. We get out there and really enjoy it, and we're all trying to kill a big buck. Don't get me wrong, but we're going to talk origin stories and how we got into hunting, how we got into bow hunting, why we like it so much, and these two guys are more recently into hunting than me. My dad took me out when I was 9 years old for the first time. These guys both started as adults, so. For anybody listening that's just getting into hunting, hopefully, these guys have some good starting points for you. So let's start with Tyler, who just started hunting last year, right?
Yeah, last year was the first time I ever hunted, and it really didn't even get to hunt a lot. My whole story with hunting is I've always been an outdoors guy. I like the outdoors. I'm always outside. I fished growing up my whole life. But I never got into hunting. It was always something I, had an interest for, but I never got into it. Good friends of mine, they hunt, but I just never got into it. But it took, I'm 31 now. Last year I was 30. So going up to 30, I never had the opportunity to meet my real father. I have a stepfather and, my mother and whatnot, but I never got to meet my real dad. Until last year, and for whatever reason, it goes in so much detail. I mean, I'd have to sit here for probably 3 days talking about it, but I was able to connect with my dad, and it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Easily the best thing that ever happened to me, and we hit it off so quick because we're just so alike. He's a big time outdoorsman, huge hunter. There's bucks all over his house. There's mounted striped bass fish. You name it, the guy loves trout fishing. This past season he got 88 trout fish. With this whole
nice.
With this whole COVID thing, he's been out there daily fishing.
Free meat.
Yeah, so really getting to meet him and trying to connect on a personal level after going so long not even knowing each other.
Yeah.
That was like the main priority. and how we started connecting so well and getting to know each other, and really having that father-son relationship was he has a boat, and we actually go fishing in Salisbury off of the state park in Salisbury, Mass.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of fishing last summer, caught some big fish, had a blast, and then it got into hunting season, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to hunt?" And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever's going to get me the most opportunity to spend time with him."
Right.
That's what I was really thinking of.
Yep.
Wasn't so much thinking sport-wise. It was more so, hey, this is going to get me time to hang out with my dad, So I remember he gave me his old bow. It's a single cam Bowtech, and I still use it to this day. He gave it to me last year. I think I took like 5 to 10 shots in his backyard with it. It wasn't even spec'd for me. It was spec'd for him, and is what it is. But I remember I was shooting it, and it is what it is. I got hand-me-down hunting clothes from him. I knew nothing about hunting, man. I didn't even research hunting at the time last year. I just kind of went with the flow to spend time with him. And I'll remember the first time I ever got in the woods. I hunt a private piece of property in Boxborough. And I remember driving up the driveway, really having no clue what the heck I was doing. Like, no clue, Excited like a little kid on Christmas, but no clue what was going on.
You probably felt a little lost, right? It was just
man, lost.
And you were by yourself, right?
Yeah, by myself this time. So, I just, I had no clue what I was doing, and I'm like kind of scared, Here I'm a police officer, and I deal with crazy stuff on a regular basis.
Yep.
And I could say the first time stepping out of my vehicle and walking into the woods, I was petrified. I'm like, what am I doing here?
Was it dark? Was it in the dark?
Yeah, it was 5:30 in the morning.
Yep.
October 30th, 5:30 in the morning. And I remember getting out of my car, grabbed my bow. I think I grabbed my backpack and whatnot. It was a little chilly out. The woods are like right off this driveway at this private land. And I remember walking in, and I couldn't have been any more than 15 yards in to the piece of property. And I looked to my left with my Streamlight flashlight. Again, I went in there, guns blazing with a big flashlight because I have no clue what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
I went in there. I looked to my left, and there's 2 bucks there. There was a monster 8. Like, I mean a monster 8. To the point where I've never seen a deer that close in my life.
Yeah,
ever.
and you had never seen a deer in the woods, and here you are.
Yeah,
your first trip.
Yeah, I was petrified. I'm like, do deer attack people? In my head, I'm like, is that thing gonna come after me? Like, I had no clue.
Yeah.
And there was a little 6 next to them too, and they were just grazing by a rock wall. So I was just like, all right, I'm gonna continue onward. So I kept going. I was going north in the woods, and I probably went like, I don't know, 50 yards in because I'm like, oh man, a coyote's gonna get me. I had no clue what was going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had a climber at the time too, and it's pitch black. I'm probably making more I thought I was being stealth, but I bet you I was being super loud out there. Mm-hmm. But I ended up getting up the tree. I think I only went like 15 to 16 feet with the climber. And instead of facing west with my climber, where those deer were, I decided to face east towards a field next to the hardwoods.
Yeah.
And I'm like to this day, I'm like kicking myself in the butt. Like, why did I do that? But I had no clue what I was doing. I was just happy to be out there.
Yeah. How far were they away when you first saw them? Like,
they were like 20 yards away from me.
Why didn't you just shoot them? Wait.
It was still dark.
Oh, it's still dark.
Yeah, okay. It was still dark out at the time. So, I mean, it was dark. It was
easier to ask
shooting
questions now. Yeah. It's like, it's
before
your first time out.
I had no clue. So I just kept walking. And I remember getting up in the stand, and first light comes, and those 2 bucks are like probably 50 yards behind me to the west. Same spot they were when I walked in like an hour ago. I'm like, oh man, there's no way I have a shot. I didn't even have a harness on. I had no clue what I was doing. Didn't have a safety harness on. I'm in a climber.
Yeah.
I'm like looking around the tree to the backside of the tree, like hoping I don't fall. It was just crazy. But they ended up getting like 40 yards, 35 yards away from me, and then they ended up taking off to the west, and they were there for probably like an hour and a half easily. And that big 8-pointer is now a monster 9-pointer this year. He's my target buck. His name's Wonder. And, I've done so much research since that day. I probably put like 350 hours in since January scouting. Yeah. So I got him down pretty good this year. Hopefully I get him. Last year I didn't kill a deer at all. My daughter was born November 12th. Her name's Rosalina. So
big year last year.
Huge year. It was a huge year, and I think, the moral of my story for hunting is, my main priority is my family. It certainly brought me and my dad closer together. We have something to talk about. We have something to do together. And it's just a blast. And it's definitely a cool story because, like I said, I mean, I didn't know my dad for 30 years of my life, and now it's like we're best friends. So it's kind of cool.
No, it's really cool and really interesting. I think, the father-son relationship is probably responsible for, 80% of hunters getting into hunting. It's something just that, and it doesn't have to be father-son, father-daughter too, mother-son, whatever. Somebody in your family taking you out at a young age and getting you into it. That's how I got into it. I've been addicted since I was a little kid. I'm a little more addicted now. And then we've got Chris, who started as an adult, and your dad never hunted, right?
No, so I guess I'm in the minority. I'm completely self-taught, as an adult, and I've had some success. So, to give you a background, so I grew up fishing, and that was like my passion as a kid, and still is. I fish all the time. I love it, and camping and stuff like that, and love being outdoors. And I don't know, when I was maybe 13 or 14, I kind of got an interest. I wanted to start hunting, but I didn't really have anybody to show me. And by then, I guess you're still a minor, right? I don't even know what all the rules are. But my dad, he bought me an old PSE compound bow, really tall, long bow. I still have it. I don't use it anymore, but I'd shoot, I could barely draw the thing back, I was 13, 14 years old, but, I'd shoot in the backyard, and I love shooting the bow, but I never really got into hunting. And I went off to college when I was 18, and then when I graduated, I said, I want to hunt, I'm going to do it. So I took my hunter's ed, and when I was 22 or whatever, and did it at a local rod and gun club, and that was probably in February, and then that April I tried going turkey hunting and had no success, of course. I didn't know what I was doing, I bought a pop-up blind. I sat in there. I think I saw a hen come by once.
That was me this past year.
Yeah, me too. I just went turkey hunting for the first time.
Yeah. I did just get my first turkey this year. So
Nice.
So I'm 30 now, so I've been hunting for 8-9 years. And so like when I was 22, then that first fall, I went out and my first time hunting. It was the first Saturday of hunting season. This was in zone 10, or maybe, no, zone 11, so southeastern Massachusetts. And that was before they expanded the season by 2 weeks. So that first Saturday, whatever that was, maybe a week before Halloween, something like that. I go into the state forest, and, I'm getting out of my truck, and I had just bought a climber, and I didn't even know how to use the thing. And I'm trying to put on the harness, outside my car, the free one they give you, with the climber, and
that black one.
The black one,
Oh,
yeah.
I hate that thing.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm trying to do this in the dark. I'm like, I can't use my flashlight because I might scare the deer. They'll see that from a mile. I didn't know what I was doing, but meanwhile, I'm seeing other hunters come in and park near me, and they're just getting out and going in the woods. I'm like, oh man, I'm running late. So finally, I got the harness on, and I hadn't even scouted this place. I think I had been to this state forest once, just walking around, going on a walk. And I said, oh, I'm just going to go in the woods and see what happens, So I start walking down a trail, and it's dark, it's starting to get light because I'm running out of time. And I said, I'm just going to go in here. I take a right off the trail, and I'm bushwhacking, and like, I got to go in really deep to find these deer, I think. So I just find a tree, I climb it, and I'm sitting there, and then, I don't know, 30 minutes later, this nice, I think it was a 6-pointer comes in, and it was so majestic, he comes in right under my tree. You can see the steam blowing out of his nostrils. It's like a golden morning sunrise. I'm like, oh man, so this is what hunting is all about. And I probably had a shot at him, but I was so nervous. Yeah. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I don't even really know like where to shoot the thing. Like where I think you're supposed to hit his vitals, but he was right below me. So I let him go, and then
let him go. Listen to this guy.
So, that's just proof there, you just get in the woods and things can happen, you know what I mean? And of course, since then, I did a lot of internet research, read books, watched YouTube videos, and that's kind of, so like I said, I'm self-taught.
Did you end up getting a deer that year?
No, so it took me...
So your first sit, you let a 6-pointer go, plain go.
I was too nervous, and then I probably didn't see anything the rest of the season, I think that was just... the way it works.
Did you go back to that tree?
That's the funny thing. So I climbed down, and because I was walking in the dark, I had no idea where I was, but I got completely lost trying to get back to my car, and I think I didn't have cell phone service where I was. And I remember walking around with my car. I think I walked like 5 or 6 miles before I got back to my car, even though I was only like a half a mile away from the car. I did this big loop and I was exhausted and ran out of water. So
yeah, that's something I was going to say. It's like a lot of people, even myself included, think are used to hunting in big woods, 5,000 acres or more. And you've got these big tracts of land and mountains and hills everywhere. And you don't see very many other hunters. And people, the barrier to get into hunting something like that, the number one thing is people are afraid to get lost. They don't want to go out there. They don't have navigation skills. And then, I'm thinking, well, Massachusetts so far, I haven't been in a patch of woods that I would call a big, big at all. So I knew how to navigate in the bigger woods. Navigation was never an issue for me down here. But like for you guys going in your first time, even a 30 or 40 acre patch of woods can feel big, right? And intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's not just that. I had never, if I had scouted it first, I get a good sense of the land, I have a good sense of direction, but I was going in the dark. So remember that, check the place out before you hunt. That's the lesson learned.
And make sure you know how to use your climbers, and make sure you know how to use your harnesses and practice shooting and all that stuff if you can. You can bumble into the woods and get lucky and stumble onto something, but you want to be safe.
Right.
Yeah, safety's definitely. I mean, thinking back last year, no harness and stuff going on those climbers, like, what was I doing? You know what I mean? Like all the stuff I know now, but
you're worried about coyotes attacking you, and your number one,
exactly.
Your danger was the harness.
Yeah, it's like a completely 180 this year. It's so different.
So just real quick to finish, kind of my background story. So I think it took me 3 or 4 years before I got my first deer.
Yep.
And but just seeing deer, I was probably seeing deer, I don't know, every third or fourth sit, which I don't know, maybe that's typical around here. I don't really know. I've only been hunting 8 or 9 years now, but and then once I got that first one under my belt, it was a yearling doe. I don't know. I think it dressed out at 95 pounds. It wasn't a big deer, but I loved it and it was tasty, and that really got me hooked. So, and then I've gotten at least one, if not 2 deer every year since then. So
awesome.
Get that first one under your belt, and I think that's the biggest hurdle for sure. But don't be discouraged. Like I said, another season goes by, I hadn't gotten one. Another season goes by, I hadn't got one. Then another, and you're like, man, But like I said, all I had to teach me was the internet, really. And that's ended up how I ended up meeting you, Pat. But don't give up. Just get in the woods, and things can happen.
Well, now we got to convince Tyler that it's okay for his first one to be not a 10-point, massive deer.
Setting the bar high.
Yeah. No. Hey, if your first deer is that nice target that you've got, I mean, that'll be amazing.
Get goosebumps thinking about it right now.
Okay, let's get into next week's raffle. Next week, we're raffling off a Trophy Ridge sight. Trophy Ridge is a new sponsor of the podcast. They're sending in 3 different sites that we'll raffle off over the course of the season. So for next week's raffle, all you got to do to win a brand new, awesome Trophy Ridge sight, send me an email at huntsuburbia@gmail.com with a question that you would like us to put in front of our future guests to be answered on future podcasts. That's it. All you got to do is send me an email, huntsuburbia@gmail.com, and sometime in the season, we'll be raffling off 3 Trophy Ridge sites, next week being the first one. Trophy Ridge products are intelligently designed to give you a distinct advantage and be deadly accurate. The team at Trophy Ridge believes smart, hunt-inspired innovation should be at the foundation of each product's existence. You have enough to worry about on a hunt. Your gear should not be one of them. Trophy Ridge accessories give you the comfort of always knowing you're using the best bow hunting equipment when out in the woods or at the range. For information on the all-new 2021 lineup of Trophy Ridge sights, quivers, rests, releases, and stabilizers, visit trophyridge.com. Trophy Ridge, the tools bow hunters trust. I would say I'm, like a moderate gambler, but didn't really let it get too out of control. But I am, because the first time I went and bet horses, my buddies invited me down to Mohegan Sun for Kentucky Derby 2013. And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. And my job was going pretty good. I had a little bit of extra cash. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. Let's go do it. And that day, I set a budget of like $500 or something, and bet 450 up to the final race and lost every bet. And then the last race, I won $50,000, and it was nuts. And so that was my first day gambling on horses, and I was like, shit, $50,000. This is easy, right? This is going to happen every year. And I think with deer hunting too, if you make your first deer your best deer, then you can spend the rest of your life chasing that, that high. So don't be afraid to get it out of the way, especially if you have a doe tag. Like,
Right.
get it out of the way. Because every year since then, I've been betting, I don't know, $1,000 or so on the Kentucky Derby, and I pretty much always lose. So it's eating into that big $50,000 payday I had. And
I've always been a big believer too in whatever makes you happy with the deer. I never shame people, and I hate when people do, shaming people for shooting does or fawns, even whatever makes you happy. And if, now that I've gotten, several deer under my belt, now I'm going to be a little more selective. But that's what will make me happy, and so
absolutely.
just if you just want, I'd say just get that first deer. But if you want to hold out for a big one, by all means do it. You know, whatever.
I mean, I'm going to take the first thing I can get. I want to get that adrenaline rush. I want to get that kind of, not out of my system, but I want to get that first one done and over with so I can see how it goes from there and just learn. And I mean, I can honestly say that this being my second year hunting, I've, like Chris said, watching film on YouTube, watching like The Hunting Public, watching The Hunting Beast, watching tutorials, Jeff Sturgis, all these things. I mean, it occupies a ton of my time, and I think that could be like my addictive personality. Yeah. I love hunting. When I set a goal, I usually accomplish that goal, or I get pretty close to accomplishing that goal. So her support, my family support, and even allowing me to hunt is just, I can't thank them enough. I was a college athlete, so, this is kind of like that, that college sport feel for me, like hunting. I think we're 9 days away for, October 5th, right?
Yeah, it's coming up.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. And just the support from the wife. She's definitely amazing. And, I can't thank her enough. I'm sure she'll listen to the podcast as well. I got her hook. I mean, I said, we lay in bed and listen to the podcast. So what you're doing here is phenomenal. And again, it's like, you can't get enough. I feel like you can't get enough connections. Like you can read, you can go on the internet, and you can formulate a bunch of research and intel on how to track a buck, how to hunt a buck in an apple orchard, or what to look for in tracks, scat, whatever it may be. But I think just talking like we're talking now is the best thing. And like I've been fortunate enough to meet you, Pat. Been fortunate enough to meet you today, Chris. I got another guy, Nate August, who owns Crimson Pursuit. Outdoors. He's out of Rhode Island. Great guy. Brandon Ashford, John Rice. I mean, those are like best friends. And being able to pick their brains apart, my dad as well, Jake Bennett, who was on here. Those guys, it's just the hunting community is just amazing. Yeah. It really is just so supportive. And I think a lot of guys are scared to just ask somebody a question because they're afraid that they may look dumb. I mean, I can say right now, I'll ask anybody any question I have, even if it's a dumb question, because you know what, no question's dumb in this world, because you learn every day. And
the other thing too, the internet's great. Other people are great to learn, but just get out there and you'll learn yourself from nature. I think
boots on the ground,
right? Just watching the way animals react when they smell you, or watching the way a deer's feeding, or the way a buck's chasing a doe, or whatever. I think just get out in the woods. You can learn a lot from the internet. You can learn a lot from other people, but until you see it with your own eyes and hear it with your own ears, I think that's a great way to learn too.
Yeah, see, like I talk with the Big Woods Bucks guys a lot. I'm friends with all those guys, and they, what they're doing is like the pinnacle peak. It's harder to get into than like picking up a bow, shooting in your backyard, find someplace nearby your house where you're not going to get lost. You don't really got to worry about survival techniques, all that kind of stuff. But when you're thinking about going into like the vast wilderness and getting on a buck track and following it wherever that goes, that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. So when you listen to that podcast, they talk about all the time. 95% of the people listening are just listening because they're envisioning it and they are aspiring to it and just kind of daydreaming about what that would be like, but 95% of them aren't going to get out and do it. So making it accessible, like I still haven't gone up to northern Maine or northern New Hampshire and done the tracking. I want to do that, this year if I can. Last year I got on a track, but it was just in southern Massachusetts in the big patch of woods there, and it was fun. But making hunting accessible, something that we got to do. We've got to let people know that you're not going to get lost in the woods. The coyotes aren't going to eat you. Like get those fears out of the way. And just have fun with it, man. There's nothing more fun for me than it's an adventure, whether you're in a 30-acre patch of woods or 40,000 acres,
Mm-hmm. And I think, too, it's gotten a lot more fun for me since I've met other hunters and been able to share that experience with other people. Like the first few years I did it, I was pretty much by myself, and then just being out, I've met you, I've met a bunch of other people, if at work I see somebody else hunts, I'll say, oh, hey, I heard you talking about hunting with that other guy. You hunt? And then, I've formed friendships with guys that way, and then I've been able to pick their brains, people who've been hunting a lot longer than me. So, yeah, if you meet other hunters, meet them. It makes it a lot more fun when you got other people to share the experience. Yeah. But not even like going out and actually hunting with them, but just someone else to talk to, tell your stories, and share information.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I know Tyler. Today's the first time I actually met him.
Seriously.
We've been texting back and forth for
Texting
weeks.
pictures, and I mean, it's just...
Yeah.
I've never met a hunter that doesn't want to talk about it, Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to... You want to share your knowledge with people.
You may not want to share your secret spots, but...
No, yeah. You gotta hold on to some of your spots. But, only have to share that if you need help dragging the deer out. But, yeah, I think it's funny, like... People talk about it with CrossFit all the time. It's the first rule of CrossFit is you got to talk about CrossFit to everybody. If you do it, you got to talk about it to everybody. But I mean, hunters are. I can talk about hunting all day long.
Oh, me too.
And you got to find other hunters too to give your significant other a break.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you got.
I think my wife reached her boiling point. She said, "I don't care." She's very supportive, but she's like, I don't care about that picture of a nice deer you got.
Oh yeah, yep. I know. Well, my phone was buzzing last night because Tyler got me into getting a couple of cell cams.
Yeah.
And, because I was checking my cameras every week. I'd go to a new set or something and let the other one sit for a couple weeks. But every week I'd be coming up and like, oh, all right, I haven't checked out that one in 10 days. Let's go get it. And, I think, that definitely does... You make deer more aware of your presence if you're in there more before the season. So I'm trying not to do that. And Tyler got me into. I got a couple of Moultrie cell cams, and my phone is just buzzing all the time with a picture coming in. And last night my wife was like, "Can you turn your phone on silent? Like it buzzes all night long, and it was waking me up."
Yeah, mine is too. We have a 10-month-old, and she gets fed, throughout the night and whatnot. So every time the wife wakes up, I usually wake up so I can look and see if I got any pictures or whatnot. You know what I mean? It's just, it's crazy, but it's what we love to do. And you know what? I mean, if we're addicted to hunting and we like hunting and, it's enjoyable, I think that's a great hobby to be addicted to. I mean, it's...
Oh yeah, there's far worse addictions.
Far worse, and it's just, it's fun. It's enjoyable. And I think having other people, other hunters to talk to, like Chris said, I mean, that's huge. You get a picture of a monster buck. I mean, it's hard to keep that inside. Like you want to just be like, guys, look at this. It's just something you do. And
yeah.
I'm not super secretive with my stuff. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say where my target is. I'm not going to do that.
Send me those GPS coordinates.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I'm not going to do that, but. I don't know. It's just something fun. It's something fun to talk about. It's good to talk over coffee. It's good to text. I mean, I text the same, probably 3-4 guys daily.
Yep.
Looking at maps, looking at the terrains, looking at different places that you can go on an adventure. And I think outside of just the harvest part, I've never killed a deer. I don't even know that feeling yet. I mean, I can't wait. I try to envision it, but I think it's nothing you can envision until you've already experienced it. So
it's emotional, man.
Yeah. So
and you'll be sitting over the deer with your knife, saying, "All right, what do I do now?"
Yeah, exactly.
Pull out YouTube and.
So I don't even have that experience yet, but the experience that I do have is, you hear guys always say, "There's nothing better than being in the woods when the woods wakes up." Mm-hmm. It's 100% true. Like that. I mean. I could hunt for the rest of my life and not have a harvest and be okay with that just because of the feeling you get being in the woods when everything wakes up and when everything goes back to bed.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable, You hear the birds, turkeys fly down out of the trees, the squirrels and chipmunks start roaming around, and
owls start hooting everywhere.
The owls are hooting, and then you see a hawk up above, and then you start hearing footsteps of deer. It's just That's unbelievable. There's nothing like that. The sun rising. It's just that's like unbelievable.
Yeah. And then if you're in the suburbs, maybe a dog and a jogger comes by too. And
Don't forget the lawnmower.
I remember sitting an evening once. It was early November, right before my daughter was born. I'm sitting in my stand, and there's a house pretty close by, and all of a sudden you hear like opera singing. I'm like, what is that? Somebody was singing on their back porch opera as loud as they could. Like I could hear it perfectly.
Yeah.
But I think that's why like hunting in suburban areas is so great, because the deer they eat that up.
Yeah,
they get used to it.
I think
they're used to it. I feel like the deer almost want the people close by, so they know where they are. They know what they're doing. They just get used to it, I think. And I mean, my private property that I hunt, it's not really very heavy pressured. So these deer are just, there's times I'm going out there and 30 minutes after I leave the woods, the deer are out. It's just,
yeah.
I think I'm fortunate enough to be able to hunt where I do hunt and have permission to hunt where I hunt, which is definitely a plus. I haven't really gone into the public sector of hunting yet. Well, that'll probably be my next plan next year.
I was going to say, too, for anyone listening who's maybe an adult or late teenager, whatever, just trying to get into it, and you don't have private spots, don't be afraid to hunt public. Mm-hmm. I've taken several deer on public land. Like I said, that very first time I went out, that was public state forest,
Yeah,
and
I think 80% of my deer are public land.
Especially early season, too, before all the gun hunters get in there,
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I think bow hunters are pretty stealthy and quiet, obviously. We're not doing drives or anything like that. Not to saying anything bad about gun hunting. I do that too. I've shot deer with shotgun, but don't be afraid to go public if that's all you have access to, or if you haven't gotten permission on private land yet. You can.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, but you certainly have a shot at nice deer.
We all own millions and millions of acres in the United States. It's called public land.
Yep.
We own millions of acres. You can be dirt poor, and you've got access to that, so utilize it.
Yep.
What do you like? So, Chris, like when you're doing your scouting, we talk about all the time, like you get into a spot and there's like 6 stands, 100 yards away from each other in every direction, and you can get discouraged about that. Like one spot that I started scouting this year, it is like that. First, it always happens the same way. You get in there, you see a lot of deer sign, you might see some deer. I jumped like 7 or 8 deer in this particular spot the first time I walked into it scouting, and that's usually a good sign. I'm like, all right, I know there's a lot of deer in here. And I looked around pretty good, it felt like, and I didn't see any stands. And put up a camera. Next time I went in to get my camera, I noticed a stand. I was like, oh shit, how did I miss that one? It was 50 yards away from the camera. And then I started scouting more of that piece, walking downhill after checking the camera. And like almost every 100 yards on the way down the hill, I'm walking on it. Usually you're walking on a deer trail when you're out scouting, and you're walking in the path of least resistance, and you don't realize, but that's where the deer are walking to. You're avoiding a blowdown tree, you're going around it, you're ducking under limbs that are hanging down. You're going the exact same place that a deer is. So a lot of times you won't realize it, but where you naturally decide to walk when you're scouting is the best spot. And that's why I love the Onyx tracker. Tracker part of Onyx is after you're done scouting, you can kind of generally see the way that the land funnels you and most likely big game through it. So throw that on if you have the app. And we're going to draw another winner this week for the app. We've got, I think, 7 more free subscriptions for Onyx. So keep tuning in and entering the raffles. But don't get discouraged about all those stands, because Chris has taught me, like, well, those guys, chances are a lot of them are gun hunters, so they won't even be there in bow season. And then also, like I was talking with Kevin last week, a lot of times, like, there might be one hunter that put up 3 or 4 stands too. So don't think like, oh, there's going to be hunters everywhere in here, I'm never going to see any deer. And also, that spot, I've seen the most bucks out of any of the places I'm scouting. There's like 10 bucks in there, and 3 or 4 shooters for what I would shoot this year. So you know what? Go in there and still hunt it. Don't get discouraged if the only place nearby that you have has a bunch of stands. Try to be respectful. Set up your stand in a spot that's not super close to the other ones, but right, like you've seen a lot of.
Yeah. So this might be a little bit of a generalization, but I I think a lot of eastern Massachusetts, you got higher deer numbers, but there's less. I guess there's less woods, and then you got a lot of hunters crashing in on those woods too. Whereas you go to the western part of the state, I think you got more land to hunt, more room to spread out, but the deer numbers are a little more where they should be. I'm kind of in central Massachusetts. We got a little. I don't know. I see a little bit of both, depending on which direction I drive. But yeah, I see other stands, and when I'm scouting, and yeah, you find a good spot. You're like, oh, this. I was scouting this spot a few weeks ago. It's this nice swamp, and it was like a 2-mile hike in from where you can park. I'm like, there's no way anybody's gonna walk in here. I saw a ton of sign, and and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. And then, of course, I see a couple stands and a camera, and chances are, and that's on public land. Chances are, if you found it, someone else did too. Especially now with aerial imagery and Google Maps and Onyx and stuff. I think a lot of people can find swamps and ridges and transition woods and that kind of thing without ever having to leave their home. And a lot of people are doing their homework, which I do too. And then you get out there. So, but if you see another stand, don't be discouraged. The odds of that other guy being there or girl, when you're there is probably slim. More likely, I think, probably on a Saturday, but. Just be respectful, give them space, and if you can get in even deeper than where that stand is, a lot of guys are lazy. They're setting up right on the side of the stand or closer to the car. If you can get in deep, sometimes those guys will go in and they'll push the deer to you.
Yeah.
So use that to your advantage.
Yeah. If you can find out where the majority of the guys hunting that piece are coming in, chances are they're all going to be coming in pretty much the same direction. So try to sneak in the back door a different way.
Right.
Get set up early, and let them push deer to you.
Yeah, I'm curious how this upcoming season's going to go with COVID. I saw, this past spring when COVID first hit, there were a lot of guys turkey hunting. Like, I saw way more guys than I usually did. I think it's just a lot more people are either out of work, so they're going to hunt, or maybe they're working from home, so now they have more time to sneak off before or after work. I'm curious how this is going to go. Now that we're a little bit more back to normal, maybe it won't be so bad, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
That's true. It's a good point.
Tyler doesn't have that problem. He's hunting private, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see.
Look, I hate ticks. You hate ticks. I know you hate ticks. I know your parents hate ticks. I know your kids hate ticks. We all hate ticks. You know what I want to do to ticks? I want to kill them. You know how you do that? Sawyer permethrin. Not only repels ticks, keeps them off your clothes, but if they do happen to get on there, it'll kill them. They only have to go over 1.5 inches of your clothing that's been treated with Sawyer permethrin to die. What's better than that? Maybe killing a big buck, but this is a close second. These guys are an amazing company. They're U.S. based. They're family owned and operated. Look for the yellow bottle. You can find them in Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop, Dick's Sporting Goods, Moose Jaw, REI. Find them online. Whatever you got to do, get Sawyer permethrin. It is not expensive. It'll save your life from these diseases that ticks carry. And it's a quick application. You spray it on your clothes, spray it on your hat, put it on your socks and shoes, put it on your backpack, let it dry outside in the breeze, and it dries odorless. The deer are not going to pick you off from putting this stuff on your clothes, I guarantee you. Get Sawyer permethrin. You won't regret it. Okay, it's time to pick the winners for the raffle. This week we have 2 raffles, if you remember, and we'll get right into it and draw the name for the OnX subscription. Congratulations to James Hogan. James, reach out to huntsuburbia@gmail.com, and we will get that over to you. And then we're going to draw the name now for the Cook's Fatal Attraction Deer Sense. And that winner is Justin Bonenfant. Once again, I hope I pronounced that right, but shoot me an email, huntsuburbia@gmail.com, and we'll get your address and get that shipped out. Congratulations, guys. What else you got for tips for scouting public land, since that's the majority of new hunters are going to be looking at public properties?
Yeah, I think a lot of these deer, a lot of this public land is also shared with non-hunters too. People walking, jogging, mountain biking, taking their dogs on walks. So a lot of these I think have a system of trails, main trails. So I like to get off of those. I'll walk the main trails, and then I look for game trails that cross those main trails. And usually you can find a pretty well-defined run, and then this is all before the season when I'm doing this scouting, so I'm not blowing the spot up. But, I'll follow those and I'll walk as long as I have to until I find a lot of sign. And I found that a lot of times on this public land, the deer they kind of hang out in one spot. They seem to congregate, is from what I've found. Find those spots and then, set up near there. And then, I'm looking for scat tracks, old rubs from, prior seasons. And then, and just once you hunt it a few, I think just get out there and hunt and you'll get a sense of, where these deer come from, where they're bedding, where they're eating. And maybe you'll see, there's been several times, I found a good spot on public. I found all the sign. I'm set up on it and, I'll sit there 3 or 4 times, and every time I see deer, they're 100 yards away. They're just out of range. Yeah. So, move.
But you're gathering intel.
Intel. So, you're not going to, you might not be right on them at 30 yards every single time. But if you can find the general area, and then you can pinpoint down,
Yep. Hunt the fresh sign and learn from every sit.
Yep. And I use a climber, and I'll say when I first started hunting, before I really knew anything, I was really stubborn. I was always setting up on the same tree. And it's the deer activity is not always textbook. It's not always like you see, a swamp over here and food over there. They're not always going to take that same trail at whatever time of day like you'd expect them to, like you read online that they're going to do. So I'd always, I was stubborn, and now I've learned, don't be afraid to move, especially with the climber. Sometimes I'll do a morning sit, and then I'll move it closer or farther away from, wherever I think the deer are going to be in the afternoon. And that's an advantage of a climber versus a ladder stand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, whenever you can, like we're talking about balancing our hunting life with our personal lives too. And yesterday, my wife and I went on a walk with the baby. I got a newborn too, 3 months old. And we're walking down a path and just going by a swamp, and I was like, let me just dip down here for a second. And
45 minutes later,
I just like to look at the edges. And it's been a drought here in Massachusetts, and I think a lot of the country has been a drought. So swamps are a lot drier than they were, which can allow you to kind of creep in a little bit more than you normally would without waders and stuff like that. So I was just, I saw a nice little muddy spot at the corner of a swamp and just dip down there and see what's there. Like, even that gave me some intel. I saw a big track where I was yesterday.
Yeah.
That was all splayed out. It's definitely a buck, and it's a nice looking buck. And now, I just took 2 minutes. I jumped off the trail and jumped back up, and you get a little bit of intel. So
another thing too about the public, when you're scouting, if you see sign near a main trail where you think people are going to be walking and doing whatever, don't say, oh, that's near a main trail, people are going to scare these deer away. I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting in a tree, I see a deer, and then someone jogs by and the deer just stops, and they just watch that jogger, and then the jogger's gone, and then the deer goes back to doing what it was doing.
Yeah.
So even if you're near other people, the odds are they aren't going to see you. And during bow season, you don't have orange on, so don't worry about it scaring anybody. But, don't be afraid to set up near a parking lot, if that's where the sign is, or near the main trail, So.
Yeah, everybody do that so we can go in deeper and get the best buck.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Last year I was sitting in my stand here, and the biggest buck I'd ever seen in the woods in my life. I had an opportunity. He passed out 65 yards away from me. He passed through the woods, and I just couldn't get a shot. Obviously, way too far. And I called. I used rattling and some grunting to get him back in. And he came. First time I've ever been able to call something back too. He came back up. He kept a distance because he was looking for a fight going on, because my calling sequence, told him that there was a fight up there. And but they're smart. They're smart, man. He kept his distance and kept some thick stuff between us. I've never got a shot on him, but he had a 7-minute. There was a 7-minute standoff where he didn't flinch a muscle. He got to the final point. He walked up, and his final step, he stopped, and he stood there for 7 minutes. And during that 7 minutes, my neighbor's dog came out, and it's one of those little ankle biter dogs, and it picks up anything in the woods and just barks. And for probably like 4 or 5 minutes of that, it was barking during that standoff, and that buck was just looking over there, but really paying no mind to it. So, like we said, hunting suburbs, the deer are used to a lot of this activity that goes on. The deeper you go into the woods, maybe a little less used to it, but yeah, they're used to living around people.
Yep.
And dogs and all that stuff. So
Yep, and that's why when I walk into the woods in the morning, I usually I go at a steady pace to my tree. I don't, I think when you try to really sneak in, sometimes you sound more like a predator than they're used to people walking in the woods, in these suburban areas. So I just, I'm not sprinting in or anything like that, but I take a steady pace, and I try to avoid stepping on sticks and stuff like that. But, and I just try to get in there, and I've found, in my experience that doesn't seem to deter the deer, any more than if I were to take an hour longer to slowly sneak in,
Yeah, that's something I battled with, my whole hunting career too, is I've found myself trying to be like Elmer Fudd or like a Native American, right? And you're creeping along so slowly and trying not to make any noise at all.
Yep.
Yeah, but in the reality, if all of a sudden the woods are silent because somebody's walking extremely quietly and then there's a loud noise, there's a stick crack or something, yeah, that stands out a lot more than just a steady crunch. So that's good advice.
That's good advice, yeah.
Tyler, what do you think, like, in your first year of hunting, what have you learned about deer activity, from day one when you didn't know anything? Like, what would you say stands out the most to you about what you've learned about these deer this last year?
Man, the respect I have for deer now, it's unbelievable. I mean, I didn't realize how resilient deers were. I didn't realize how intelligent the deer were. I mean, they are. I mean, I think the most important thing with hunting is respecting the game, respecting what you're doing, and being respectful of the nature and the environment and everything like that. And I think I definitely am and whatnot. But I think for me, I'm kind of an analytical guy. I mean, like, I just pulled this up while you guys were chatting, but
Sabermetrics.
like this right here, that's my target buck right there that I've been after since last year.
Is that an Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, this is definitely Sabermetrics here. For deer
Yeah, I
hunting.
mean, I feel like it may not tell you a ton, but you're gonna pick up patterns by just being organized. And I mean, I have that list right there down to.
For those of you listening, he's got an Excel spreadsheet with deer, the date, the time, the wind direction, barometric pressure,
moon phase,
which direction they came from. Jeez, he's got it all color coded. That's intense.
I just it's for me. It's just I do better with things when I see it. So if I'm seeing it on a camera, I'm jotting everything down. And that Excel sheet right there, that's my target buck. I mean, that's probably a lifetime buck. As you guys saw pictures. For me, that'd be it's a once in a lifetime buck.
Yeah.
And I've been
For me too.
I've been lucky enough to even have the opportunity to even be on the same land as that buck. So I think for me, it's just they do have patterns. I mean, they certainly have patterns.
Yep.
I've narrowed that. My target down to kind of a pattern. It's like a 8 to 10 day loop is what he's really doing.
So are you gonna wait until the barometric pressure and the wind direction is perfectly?
I've noticed the barometric pressure with this buck really is nothing. I think the most important thing with this buck right here is really the cold front coming in. As any bucks, right? I mean, a lot of deer move more so when the cold front comes in. But with my Excel sheet and my data, when the cold front comes in on a certain moon phase, let's call it a waxing crescent moon phase, which in particular this one, I've seen him on camera 45 times, and out of those 45 times, there's been like 17 times he's been out during shooting light, which I've noticed from just the data that I've put in. Out of those 15 times or whatever the number was that I've seen him on camera during shooting light, like 9 of those times have been during a cold front when it's been a waxing crescent moon. So it's like, all right, I mean, hey, that may only give me a 27% chance more of getting him, but hey, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
back to gambling, you're handicapping a bit there.
But you got to I feel like you got to use all the tools to your advantage. I mean, why am I walking in there on an east wind if I know he's coming on a west wind?
So I've been doing something similar. Last year I started carrying a journal with me out every time I hunt. It's a little thing that fits in my pocket, and every single sit I write down the date, obviously, where I am, but then the wind speed, the weather, the temperature, and I've been writing down what I saw, and I've been writing down anything I tried. Like, did I try a doe can call or rattling, or did I stay silent? Did I try, urine sprays? And I'm taking notes as much detail as I can. And I just started doing that last year, but I figured the more years I can collect that information, I can look for patterns, kind of like you got on your Excel spreadsheet, and I can see, oh, okay, on November 16th last year at this spot, when, and I write down the barometric pressure too, when it was this pressure, this buck came out, and did he respond to a can call, or did he totally ignore me? And I feel like, you can get patterns from that. So I'm hoping to get several years worth of data, in my journal, but
put it into an Excel spreadsheet. It'll be easier.
I mean, for me too, is like, so the private property that I have, where I'm hunting, I have permission from 3 properties back to back to back, side by side. And, you got a funnel of hardwoods that lead right into an apple orchard that lead into a field full of clover.
Sounds like a nice spot.
Yeah, it's a great habitat, multi-habitat and whatnot. But what I've noticed is like these small suburban areas. Like I'm only on a total of like 32 acres of land out of
That's
those
a
3
lot.
properties.
That's a good.
It seems good, but it's funny. It seems big, but when you're in there and last year I went into hunting, like I said, the first time ever, completely blind. I had no idea where I even was. So you want to talk about snapping sticks and whatnot? I was all over the place. Now it's like I've put in so many hours. I know where really everything is in those 3 properties. But I feel like a lot of people say, all right, well, play the wind. Like, yeah, playing the wind is important. I feel like playing the wind is definitely important for your scent control and whatnot. But, just from this target buck that I'm after this year, the data shows like he's coming at all types of different winds. And a lot of these, small pieces of land in the suburban areas, a lot of these bucks they feel safe. It's maybe not feel safe is the right word, but they're just so used to people. They're so used to smelling people. They're smelling dogs, smelling domestic animals, things like that. They're kind of just coming when they feel they're safe. It's safe to do so. So I mean, you can say, oh, don't hunt the east wind, but well, what if that day he comes on an east wind?
Yeah, maybe you can set up your stand.
So I mean, I have 5 different setups across those 3 properties. I got 2 blinds and I got 3 different hang-on stands. So it's.
And do you have different approaches for each one too?
I have different approaches. I have different entry and exit approaches and things like that. I mean, I have 3 different spots that I hunt that are public, but I would say my main focus this year is on that private land.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you sound like you're super prepared this year, so
I'm trying.
Going to be really interested to keep in touch with you throughout the season. And if you, like I said, get a deer, any of you guys, you want to come record a kill story.
Oh, yeah.
I've got some, the way podcasting works, I've got a podcast host, and I've got X amount of storage I can use a month, and I've got like 150 megabytes extra that I'm not going to hit this month. I want to fill that up next month with some kill stories. So
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Quick 20-minute, 30-minute hitters, and bring the deer here so I can admire it. We can get some pictures. And
you gonna butcher it for us too?
I'll just take the tenderloins out.
And I just want to make it note, like I am completely inexperienced in hunting. I mean, I don't have a kill yet. I've done a lot of research. Yeah, I've been in the woods. I've put in tons and tons of miles dating back to last January. But, it's like we talked in the beginning of this podcast, networking's so important. I mean, just by talking to somebody else and getting some feedback, or maybe, hey, you should try this a little, that just builds your confidence too. I mean, even just listening to what Chris is saying about public hunting right now, the past, 45 minutes we've been talking, I mean, that's all rolling in my head. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take that and use that as well. And I think that's the best thing about hunting. There's no specific way to do it. Right?
Everybody does it completely differently.
Do it the way that best fits you. But
you're bringing sabermetrics into it. That's awesome. I haven't even heard. I'm sure there's quite a few people across the country that's doing stuff like that. But you're taking it to a different level, and that's awesome.
I feel like when I see it, it's better. And I mean, patterns pop, like that waxing crescent moon phase. Like I wouldn't even think of that. You know what I mean? Until I see it on paper. It's like, oh, all right, man, he's coming around on a cold front. It's a waxing crescent moon. I should probably be in the stand,
And then the November rut will happen. Everything will change.
Yeah.
All flipped upside down.
Yeah.
But
there's somebody listening out there that knows how to code, and they're putting together a new business idea where they take all your can pictures for you, and they put that data in, and then they pop out hey, here's the next date that your target buck is 40% likely to be coming.
They have apps out there that like show you like the best possible days to hunt. I have no idea how good they are.
So I use HuntWise. I mean, HuntWise. The reason why I like HuntWise is because you can click on a property and it actually gives you the telephone number to them.
Oh yeah.
And it actually gives you if it's a cell phone, they give you the option that you can either call or text. So that just makes getting permission a lot easier right there because some people are afraid to go face to face and knock on doors.
Yeah.
It's just easier to make a call or it's easy to send a text. I mean,
You do that for a living.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the biggest thing. Tell your story. When you're trying to get permission, tell your story. Explain what hunting means to you. Don't just say, I'm in here to kill animals, because that's not what we do.
Yeah.
That's not what we do.
And guess what? Like, we're not shooting at everything that moves. People think it's like, oh, there's a hunter in here. Well, yeah, I'm like jogging
Bullets
this trail.
by.
It's like, we're not just like big dumb idiots that see movement and pull back and shoot right away. And you know what I mean? 99.99% of hunters are extremely careful, respectful. We love the land, we love the wilderness, we love deer and wildlife and all of that stuff, and we want to preserve it.
Absolutely.
So Chris, last year, I think it's such a great story that the first day Chris and I met, he like I said, he had offered up his truck to help me move some wood. And we're just posting on a local forum. I mean, everybody's got them, whether it's Facebook or some forum online that you can connect with people in the community. And we kept in touch and decided to hunt together one morning. So it's kind of like a hunter blind date. We never met each other, and here we are at 4 a.m, like creeps meeting in a parking lot. Like, hey, nice to meet you. Let's go hunt. That day was an awesome hunting day. It poured. It was pouring rain all morning, 3 or 4 hours or so. And Chris ended up leaving to go bring his, had to take his dog out, but planned on coming back. And while he left, the rain kind of cleared up. And
I should have stuck around a little longer. I think it was like 10:30 in the morning I left, right?
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, it was 10:30 in the morning he left. I think it was 10:45 when I shot that buck or something like that.
Yeah.
5-pointer came in, looked like a nice big. I think I texted Chris that it was an 8-pointer, and then it got up and it was 5. But I was super happy with it. Chris came back. He brought the
jet sled.
Yeah, I got a deer sled to help me get it out of there, and I'm really grateful for that. And that was awesome, and that really started our friendship. And try to hunting can be solitary, but hunting can be really fun, and it is most fun when you're doing it with friends and somebody you might be introducing it to, or somebody needs help. It's just the camaraderie part of hunting is like, it's huge.
Yeah, and by no means am I an expert. Like I said, I've been hunting 8 or 9 years, and I was sort of self-taught, but now I've got a couple people who want to get into hunting. They're young adults too, and I'm really excited to kind of show them what I know, my very limited amount of knowledge. But you want to pass it on, and I'm sure too when you teach people, you're probably learning stuff yourself too, So
yeah, because you don't normally say it out loud, and,
right?
And someone wants you to walk them through something, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess I do know a little bit more about that than I thought I did.
Yeah.
Yep. So what do you got on cameras? Are you looking at any bucks this year, Chris, that you've got on cam, or what's your outlook on your season?
I'm not huge into the camera game like you are. I think you said you got like 15 cameras or something like that. I have 3. I've got one behind my house, which I don't want to shoot all the deer back there. So if I see a nice big buck on the camera, maybe we'll go hunt it. But I don't hunt that spot a lot.
Everybody's always protective of like their does behind. If you got a spot like, real close by, you want to keep them around.
I've shot a couple does back there, and I've told myself that all right, that's enough. That was actually where I shot my first deer, so I had no reservations about that. But now that I've taken a couple does, maybe I'll shoot a nice mature buck. But and then I've got a couple cameras on some public land. So I've seen some nice deer. I'm trying not to check them right now. I want to stay out of the woods until the season starts. I guess by the time this podcast airs, maybe the season will have started. But
yeah, I think this will be second week in October or something like that.
So no, I don't have the one target buck. Like I said, I'm still trying to get like my first nice mature buck. It doesn't have to be. I'd be totally happy shooting, a 4-corn or a 5, 6, whatever. I want to get a nice deer. So now that I've gotten a few, I've shot does and button bucks, small bucks. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, I think I can be a little more selective. But so that's sort of my goal for the season. Any whatever year and a half, 2.5-year-old deer that comes by, I'd like, if I have a good shot, I'm going to take it. So like I say, yeah, I've gotten a few bucks on camera. I know their patterns will totally change, later in October and into November, but so that's sort of my goal for the season.
Yeah, Tyler, I know you're focusing on your private property, but what's going to get you to go into a public land and avoid the private property for a day? I know you're gonna be so anxious to get in there and try to get that 10-pointer, but or 9-pointer.
Yeah, he's a 9-pointer.
Like, do you have any strategy again, like on when you're gonna go in there? Like, you're gonna want to get in there, but you can't hunt it every day.
Correct. Yeah. So, like I said, I got 5 sets on those 3 pieces of property that kind of,
Yep.
They're funneling out of the hardwoods into the orchard. They're going from the orchard into the farm. It's kind of just narrowing down to their time sets and their routes. So usually if they're in the hardwoods, they're going to be entering the field at some point. So, that's why I have so many different sets. But I have another piece of property, another private piece of property in Zone 10 as well. So I can kind of balance between those two. But I think for public, I really don't know anything about public, and I'm not even going to sit here and pretend like I know anything about public, because I know when you have private land, you can kind of narrow your private land down to how you want to hunt it and not have to worry about other hunters and whatnot. So I'm kind of blessed in that aspect. So public wise, I think it's just going to be boots on the ground and kind of learning as I go. Whether it's walking in there with my climber and just finding a tree and just seeing how it goes. I've never been one to shy from taking a long hike. 3-4 mile walk. What is that? 45 minutes? Big deal.
So what I've done when I hunt new public land is a lot of times I'll sit the morning, and if I don't see any, I get pretty restless. I can't do all day sits. I can make it 3 or 4 hours in the stand in the morning, and then I gotta climb down. And so if I climb down at whatever 10:30, 11 o'clock, I've sometimes just walked, even with my bow. And, the odds of you getting a shot at a deer while you're walking the bow are very slim, I know. But it's a good way to scout kind of as you're hunting public spots. And, wherever I've jumped deer, usually you're just jumping them. You're not getting a shot. But, yeah, walk the trails and just cover a lot of ground. And then, if you bump a deer, maybe now you found a good spot to set up next time.
Right. I think for me, obviously we all have goals. We all have expectations. I have a goal, I want to get that target buck. But, I'd be happy with any other buck in that area that I've seen and had on camera, since April. I'm fine with it. I'm going to try to get my first harvest, really. I sit here and say I want that first buck. I want that target.
Have you eaten venison before?
I have eaten venison, yeah. It's delicious.
Yeah.
And actually I think that's another great thing about hunting, too. You're providing for your family. You're providing, that's awesome. So I think for me, expectations are low. In my head, they're high, but I'm just going to take every day as it comes, really, and just continue to learn, because that's what I'm doing right now. I'm still learning, and, hopefully I can send you a picture with a nice buck, whether it be a 4-pointer, 2-pointer, spike horn, whatever it may be. Or my target, at the end of the day, it's just being out in those woods, man. It's just a good feeling.
For me personally, a successful hunt for me is seeing deer. It gets a little discouraging. I love being outside and in nature and all that, but when you sit, 6, 7, 8 times in a row and you don't see anything, that gets a little discouraging. And it's hard. You got to keep telling yourself, they're here. They're just not showing themselves. And eventually you start thinking, there's nothing here. There's no deer within 5 miles.
That's why you got to have a few different spots,
Right, right. Yeah, you get a little, you can burn out spots, certainly, if you hunt it too much. But also, even if you're in a spot where there's a lot of deer and you're not seeing anything, change it up. It's good for your mind, I think. It's a little refreshing, and it gives you a little more hope when you're in a new spot. Like, maybe this is the spot that holds the deer. But just seeing deer, and I'm like, okay, that was a successful day.
And I definitely believe that some spots are meant for certain times throughout the season.
Certainly.
Yep. There could be a spot where you're sitting in early October that has zero activity whatsoever. The sign's there. There are sign on that land, 100%. but there's no deer there, let's say the first 2 weeks of October, but come mid-November, it's rut paradise. And there could be monsters in there. So I think a lot of it too is, and that goes hand in hand with scouting, is finding the land, but also finding when it's most active with deer. And, I think that's what I'm kind of learning too. There's a piece of that, not my private piece of property that we're talking about with my target buck, but the other piece of land I'm talking about that's also private. My daughter was born last year in November. I didn't hunt at all, not once in the rut. So I'm really excited to experience what a rut hunt is like. I've never been able to do it. So last year I went out in December a few times in this one particular spot, and there was rubs everywhere. There's activity everywhere. Absolutely nothing. And hey, that could have just been maybe I walked in there like Elmer Fudd and bumped them all out of there. But I didn't even really see a lot of tracks there. But I know there was a ton of rubs. So maybe that was a rut spot. So this year, I'm treating it like, hey, after the rut, that spot may be dead. So I'm kind of gearing to, I have 2 sets at that spot. I'm kind of gearing it towards maybe an early season spot or a rut spot. I mean, it's beautiful. It's got a bunch of oaks. It sits right off the back of somebody's house. It's got a bunch of oaks, and between the oaks and the house is a nice little brook.
And the more years you hunt it too, the more you'll be able to pattern them.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I've got a lot of spots this year that are going to be completely brand new, and I'm just going into it thinking like, all right, I mean, I'm not expecting anything out of them, and I'll learn a lot this year, and next year it'll be a little bit more honed in. I think a lot of it is changing food sources.
Yep.
Is why spots will be hot, early season and not later season. Like with you with apples, they're hitting apples right now, and but once they're all dropped and it's done, they're not. They have to find a new food source.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm like you, Pat. I have a ton of cameras. Yep. I'm a camera freak. So I had like June, July, beginning of August.
Yep.
That farm part where all the clover was and everything like that, out of those 3 pieces of property that I have, that was getting smashed on I mean, there were bucks everywhere on my cameras. Now I'm starting to see that transition. I'm getting more and more bucks right at last light at the apple orchards.
Yep.
And luckily there's still a bunch of apples still in the trees, which is good. So hopefully they hold on another week.
Yes, maybe you can find some acorns or something for after the apples
So
are done.
Big acorn year this year.
Yeah, and on the other piece of property right next to the orchard is the hardwoods, and it's all oaks. And I mean, the oaks have been dropping now for almost a month. I've seen.
Yeah, it sounds like it's raining in the woods.
Yeah,
somewhere.
it does. I mean, I walked in there to change a card and getting pelted with the things. So I mean, they're out there. So it's going to be. I'm going to be, and really the hardwoods right now have been kind of dead. So it's almost like they're funneling up.
They're saving those acorns for later.
Oh, if there's apples nearby, they're going for the apples.
They're going the apples,
That's
and I mean,
candy.
again, another blessing. Natural resources right there. So
Yeah,
That's awesome.
But it is cool to see the transitions happening, and I'm just fortunate to have 3 different types of food sources in one spot.
Yeah, it sounds like a great spot.
Yeah.
What are you doing to butter them up to, make sure that you always have that opportunity? You said like you're dropping off.
Yeah. So me and my dad.
For anybody who's looking at private land and how to keep your relationship with the owners.
For me, the biggest thing is just respect. Tell your story. Explain what you want to do. Like for me, my big sell is this is something me and my dad do. We're looking for a good spot to hunt, to be respectful, but also, a spot where we can enjoy our time together. So me and him both have permission at these same 3 pieces of property. And I think from there, it's having a relationship, like in the beginning, I would always text them, hey, I'm going to stop by if it's okay to check my cameras. I'm going to stop by to put a salt lick out. I'm going to stop, it's just being upfront with them and being blunt with them, and they respect it. And then it got to the point where they're like, hey, you don't have to text us anymore. Just show up. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a big deal. We know your car.
Yep.
So I think that it's really just being personable with the people. And, like I said, my dad has a boat. We go striped bass fishing all the time throughout the summer. And we also each have lobster traps.
Yep.
We're fortunate enough that those 3 private properties, they love lobsters.
Yeah,
so I'll bring lobsters to them throughout the summer, and they love it. And then just gift cards for Christmas and stuff. Which they're giving you an opportunity to do something that you wouldn't be able to do if they didn't give you that opportunity. So I'm a firm believer in taking care of people. You know what I mean? Take care of people how you'd want to be treated.
And don't leave trash on these people's properties or knock down trees or whatever. It's their land, and that's a good way to get kicked off.
Exactly. I mean, even like, my entries before I do anything, I'll say, hey, do you mind even if it's just raking brush out of the way, hey, do you mind if I do? Yeah, go ahead, you know what I mean? But it's just, that's a respect factor. It's not your property, so I just think being upfront, being respectful, certainly has
offering something of value. It's a give and every relationship's a give and a take.
Absolutely, 100%.
Hey, I'll come and help you, do some farm work. If it's a farm, I'll help you do some work. I'm always here. Call me if you need anything.
Absolutely.
With you, it's great. Like, I'll bring you some lobsters.
Yeah.
Some
I've had guys say, yeah, you can hunt if you give me some venison.
Right. And that's the easiest trade-off. Like, hey, I'll share in my harvest. We're using your land. I'll share in the harvest.
Yeah.
Right?
And I've noticed, just being personable and being respectful. I've actually, those 3 spots that I hunt, like, we've become, my family, my wife and I, my kids, like, we've become very good friends with them and their children as well. So it's, again, man, it's just a big networking thing, and now we're friends with them. So it's like, cool,
And
like
maybe they'll tell other people they know about you, and who knows, maybe we'll get other spots to hunt.
Right. And I mean, the last thing you want to do is have your name in somebody's mouth in a bad way.
Yeah.
And I think the only way that happens is by being not respectful and just by kind of being arrogant and selfish. I mean, there's no reason to be selfish. There's plenty of times to do good and be nice, and it goes a long way.
Yeah, and that's just sage life advice too. You just be a good person. Most hunters are. Approach if you're looking to find a new private piece, approach it in a nice way, and I think you'll be surprised.
I think that's it. And I mean, hey, if you get shut down, I mean, who's to say that maybe they'll open up in 2-3 months? I mean, don't get discouraged. I mean, just like Chris is saying, don't be discouraged going to a piece of public land and seeing stands. I mean, it's easy to get discouraged, but hey, say you ask 50 people if you can use their land to hunt, and only 3 say yes. Well, that's 3 more properties you didn't have. And you know what? Hey, sometimes it's okay to put your tail in between your legs and take a no. It's not a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just enjoy yourself out there. I mean, at the end of the day, it is awesome. It's great for your mental health. You're, out there sitting in a stand, listening to the woods wake up, like you said.
Yeah.
You're getting to see and experience things that most people don't even think about on a daily basis. You learn a lot, and it's just it's a ton of fun. So we highly encourage anybody who hasn't taken the step yet, to take your bow course, get a bow, start shooting, and keep listening to the podcast. For some information, reach out to anybody. You'll find the community, as we said, is extremely helpful, willing to talk. There's a lot of great communities. Go to Bowsite. We all use that. You can find a regional forum on bowsite.com. Go to Facebook, join Boston Bow Hunter, or wherever you may live. Like, join your local. There's going to be a bow hunting page, and there's going to be people who love it. And just get out there and
Rod
have
and
some
gun
fun.
clubs too.
Rod and gun clubs. Yep, I still have to join one of those.
And being a beginner, my only advice to other beginners, I mean, I'm as new can be, really, in the hunting environment. And I think the most important thing is, don't be scared to just ask somebody a question. There's no dumb question, and you'd be surprised how many people respect you for asking a question and how good it actually makes that person feel, because they have the ability to share their experiences and knowledge with you as a new beginner. Hey, everybody started out as a beginner before they became a 5-year hunter, 20-year hunter, 30-year hunter. I mean, everyone starts out in the beginning, and I think that's. It shows a level of respect asking somebody for some advice, in hunting and what they do, because it makes them feel good as well. So never be discouraged and never be scared to ask questions. That's the only way you're going to learn, really.
And don't be afraid to just go into the woods. Just go.
Yeah.
Go into the woods. When it's not bow season, get out there and walk around and get off trails and bushwhack a little bit and look for sign, look for tracks and scat and all that stuff. Just familiarize yourself with the woods and try to learn how to walk quietly and become a woodsman a little bit. For those times when you're still hunting, you do want to be quiet. You don't want to be just pounding it through the woods like we might do when we're heading into our stands or getting out. Just get better every single day. You don't need to have a bow in your hand to do that. But then I would say the last thing is, like, you do before. I would caution everybody to be an excellent shot before you go into the woods. So practice with your bow all summer. And I mean, you can hunt from the ground. A lot of people hunt from the ground. We're going to have a couple guys on the podcast, either actually might be this past week if this is airing in a couple weeks, or shortly here, that are traditional bow hunters only. They use, old school recurve bows. They, make their own arrows out of wood. And, one guy wants to shoot his first deer with a stone arrowhead this year, so you can get really hardcore into it. But you can kill a lot. He kills deer every single year from the ground with traditional equipment. So you don't need, if it's not in your budget, you don't need a stand. You don't need all that stuff, but I would say the number one thing is you just need to be a good shot. Get a bow, get some arrows, be a really good shot, and then get in the woods. Make some mistakes, and you'll figure it out like Definitely. The rest of us did.
Yeah, I mean, I got a 2.5-year-old boy and a 10-month-old daughter, and I can honestly say when I've gone to check cameras, I bring them. My wife comes. We make it a day activity. I mean, there's nothing better than being outside, and I think being an outdoorsman is real fun. It's cool, and I'm blessed to be able to be in this environment and be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any final words, Chris?
No, I wish everybody good luck this season.
Yeah.
Whether you're hunting with a bow, a gun, up in a tree, on the ground, public, private, whatever. Just get out there and and meet people. I think that was kind of the theme of this episode is meeting people to. People you can hunt with, or people you can talk about hunting, and creates friendships. You get a support group. It's always nice to have someone help you drag a deer out too.
Yep. Thanks for that last year, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for sharing your spot with me.
I think you actually dragged it more than I did.
Yeah.
I was in really bad shape last year.
Yeah, well, and you got your climber and your bow and the deer. It helps to have another set of hands. But just get out in the woods, and if you can meet other people, I think that's going to be a really big advantage for you.
Yep. And if anybody has any questions, you want to shoot an email to huntsuburbia@gmail.com. Do my best to answer them. In future episodes, we'll print out some questions and ask the guests your questions. So please shoot us an email with anything you want to hear us talk about. And we really appreciate it. Thanks for coming up, boys.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to release an episode every single Sunday throughout the season, throughout the entire year, and we will possibly be releasing some bonus episodes here and there throughout the week as people, come in freshly off a bow kill and tell their stories. We hope that happens throughout the season. There might be weeks where you get 2 or 3 bonus episodes. You might not get one for a couple of weeks, but there will be some bonus episodes. But you can count on us every single Sunday to have a new interview on throughout the season. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my